Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to do kind of a trailer comparison. Since this trailer already came out, I'm not going to do a trailer breakdown of it because a million other people have already done that. But in relation, it is the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, and it's the first one that we've seen from that film. And the thing is that there was a plot leak that came out, and it was roughly 3 weeks before the trailer actually dropped. Now, the article with these leaks in it was published on August 3rd. Now, that is well before the trailer dropped, which wasn't until roughly a week ago. So, comparing and contrasting the leaks that are presented in the article, which is from BGR, by the way, I'm going to link the article down below. Comparing what they say in the article versus what happens in the trailer is very interesting because it actually matches up relatively good with what the person explains in the actual argument, because they also state that a lot of the scenes have been switched around in order to kind of mess with what you think is going to happen in the movie. Now, this is going to be going into spoiler territory. So if you do not want to be spoiled on this movie, again, these are rumors, but if you do not want to be spoiled on this movie, do not continue on with this video. Go, watch something else, do something else, whatever. So that is your one warning before we start diving into this. Now, the early parts of the trailer, and again, the early parts of the spoilers, are basically the same. We pick up right after Spider-Man Far From Home, where Peter's identity has been revealed by Mysterio, and J. Jonah Jameson, who was in the stinger scene for that, the extra credits scene, has taken that and has, posted it all over New York, and Spider-Man is now public enemy #1, and they also believe that he murdered Mysterio. So that is where we start getting the stuff where Peter Parker is in the legal office there, or he's in some kind of a police station, and he's being grilled by these two cops. Now, according to the leaks, this is where we get Charlie Cox's Daredevil character coming in, and apparently that is through Marissa Tomei's Aunt May. I don't know exactly what they don't go into great detail on how she knows Matt Murdock, but regardless, apparently he was willing to come and represent Peter, and that's how Peter evidently gets out of jail, or he avoids going to jail. So that's kind of the first big one, because Charlie Cox was rumored to be returning to the Daredevil role in this film, because they wanted to reintroduce him into the greater universe instead of just being in the Netflix universe. And his show was kind of the standout one from that group. There were some good seasons and stuff in there, but his was it was the first one, and as far as I'm concerned, it was probably one of the best ones. And I think Charlie Cox does a very good job at playing Matt Murdock as well. So I think that having him come back is a good idea. I think that it makes sense to have him come back there. Apparently, he doesn't show up really much else in the rest of the film, which is fine. They just want it in there as a cameo for people to know that he is back. So again, that makes sense. And apparently after this, we have a scene where Peter Parker, Ned, and MJ are all going to go break into the Sanctum Sanctorum because Peter has the idea that he wants to erase people's memory of him as Spider-Man, which again is gone through in the trailer. So the first act of the movie basically is exactly how it is presented in the trailer. The only difference is, I would kind of say, is that the reasoning behind why the Sanctum Sanctorum is probably frozen could be because we see an earlier shot where Ned, MJ, and Peter are all going into the Sanctum Sanctorum through some kind of secret entrance, it looks like. It's a doorway with two torches on the side and stuff. We didn't see it really in the trailer, but we did see it in screenshots that they released of the film. So I think probably what's going to wind up happening is Doctor Strange is probably going to wind up using some kind of freeze power. He's going to freeze Ned, he's going to freeze MJ so he can talk to Peter. One-on-one, and that's when we get that conversation, and that's what winds up happening when we wind up getting that whole scene in the trailer where Peter winds up fucking up Doctor Strange's spell, and he winds up opening the chambers to the multiverse. And this is also apparently, again, according to the spoilers, where we get our introduction to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Yes, he is in this movie as Spider-Man, as is Andrew Garfield, although apparently Maguire and Garfield kind of have somewhat similar screen times, but we'll go into that. But basically what happens is they establish that essentially Peter's future from the MC2 universe is basically the future that he has in the Raimi-verse. There is nothing in the trailer to support this. This one is kind of up in the air because this is a scene that they basically say is put in as an establisher for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and then he isn't really gone back to a whole lot until later on in the second act. So I'm going to put a big asterisk on that one specifically because there's really nothing in the trailer to support it. There's a lot of stuff in the trailer to support, the early chronological order of what happens, and there's a bit to support the Matt Murdock argument. But now we move into the next part of kind of this story, or this the spoiler leak that this person is giving, and that is that Doctor Strange figures out that basically they screwed with the multiverse and a bunch of crap wound up going wrong. So a bunch of villains from different universes wind up getting tossed into the MCU. Now, we knew some of this already for obvious reasons. At the end of the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, we see Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. We also see a Goblin Bomb and William Dafoe cackling as Green Goblin. Both of which are amazing to see again, and I think Alfred Molina looks almost just as good as he did in Spider-Man 2. I do like the little bit of an updated look with the turtleneck design, and the glasses are basically the same, I think. But I do like the way that looks, and the Goblin Bombs from the Raimi-verse look identical to the way that they did back in those movies, so I am happy to see that. We also know that Jamie Foxx's Electro is going to be coming in, which is from the Amazing Spider-Man series, because of contractual agreements that he signed on for that. I did a video on that like 6 months ago, I think. So we have pretty much all of that, most of that stuff confirmed. They also stated that Michael Keaton would probably be coming back as Vulture and Shocker and so on and so forth. The other thing that they mentioned in the leak is Sandman. Now, I don't know if that's going to be I think it is the Raimi Sandman, but it is not. It might not be Thomas Hayden Church who is playing him. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But they do say that Sandman apparently is the other member of the Sinister Six outside of Electro, Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Vulture, and Shocker. So we now have gone to that point, and Doctor Strange apparently deliberately picks out Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man because they have Jamie Foxx there as well. So they pick him out with his Amazing Spider-Man 2 costume. And he is apparently going to be with us for a majority of the second act, while Peter and him proceed to go fight some of the supervillains and try and bring them down. Now, that, again, is something that is not shown in the trailer. There are a few different little scenes that are shown in the trailer, like when Spider-Man has the whole thing where he's falling through the multiverse, like when they mix Spider-Man and Inception, basically, which I think might be the part where they're trying to fix things. Doctor Strange is kind of doing the same thing, where he's hopping in between, or he's basically trying to keep the multiverse together, or at least it seems that way. Now, as you go into the latter part of the trailers, there's really not too much from the third act, which I'm happy about, again, if these leaks are true. But basically, again, that's where kind of our evidence for this kind of comes to a little bit of an end. There's a few little pop-up things here and there that I'll explain. But after basically what happens is at the end of the second act, and again, we're well into spoiler territory, so anybody who's listening to this who's going to get pissed off can go fuck themselves. Basically, what happens is they introduce this plot MacGuffin, which is this orb that they use to place these individuals back into their points in time. And I'm not sure if Doctor Strange... They're probably going to have like a throwaway line in there that says Doctor Strange made this thing after Endgame, just in case more shit like that happened. Because the time travel in this... or the interdimensionality in this does work very similar to the time travel in Endgame, pretty much to a T. So at least they're staying in continuity with that idea, even though they're fucking around with the time stream again, or the multiverse, whatever you want to call it. Probably both. But basically what winds up happening is that, according to the leaks, not fake, but MCU MJ is killed during an altercation with the Sinister Six. Kind of Gwen Stacy style, which makes sense since you have Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man there, because he had to see that with Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. So she dies, and then we're going into the final act, where it's Tobey Maguire is finally in the film, basically, full-fledged in the film with the other Spider-Men, and they have to then take down the Sinister Six and defeat them in order to, send them back to their realities. Now, the thing is that there is a bit of a convoluted thing in this leak specifically, and I'm going to go over this because it involves the Green Goblin, because that's the big thing that this leak kind of claims, is that the Green Goblin is the big bad guy of this movie. It's not Doc Ock, it's not any of the MCU villains, Jamie Foxx or anybody from that universe. It is Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and apparently the reasoning for that is he was plucked out of the time stream right when he was about to be impaled by the Goblin glider. But because of the way that certain things work, but apparently he was dumped back in the MCU in the past. So again, they're going to do that thing where they try and actively retcon certain things. So basically, when Willem Dafoe was dumped back into the MCU, it was before that version of Spider-Man even existed. So he proceeded to kill that universe's Norman Osborn, take over Oscorp, and put it underground, which does make sense because, when he went public with Oscorp in the Raimi-verse, he wound up getting voted out of the board, and he got his company taken away from him, which was a huge point in that first movie. So he vows basically not to do that, and then once all these other villains start showing up, he just then forms the Sinister Six and proceeds to go and fuck Spider-Man's life. So we wind up having our moment at the end. All the Spider-Men wind up saving the universe. Willem Dafoe gets re-impaled on a Goblin glider. And apparently Peter uses the mystical orb device that Doctor Strange has had, the plot MacGuffin, to bring Mary Jane back to life, which then destroys the orb and causes the Multiverse of Madness thing to happen, because then Doctor Strange has to manually go in and mess with the multiverse in order to have it not destroy itself. But the unfortunate part of it, apparently, is that she does not remember Peter or anything else, and Ned also apparently does not remember. So it's basically what the spell was supposed to be, where Peter knows that he's Spider-Man, and he is Spider-Man, but nobody else does. They also apparently at the end of the movie do have an actual appearance by Gwen Stacy, so they're going to maybe switch up Peter's love interests, which would be interesting if they actually tried to do that, now that they've kind of erased the Mary Jane one with the pseudo One More Day storyline they're going with. And basically, according to the leak, she looks pretty much exactly like she's supposed to. There was a brief little teaser for something similar to that when you saw at the end of Endgame, after you saw Peter go back to school after he got brought back to life. And this leak also gives us the extra credit stinger, which is apparently Doctor Strange is sitting and meditating and working on basically reforming the multiverse, as Scarlet Witch whispers in his ear and changes his eye color, and she apparently is in her costume from the end of WandaVision, which explains why that show apparently goes into this one, and she's also talking about her children, which were in that show. So it does add up when you do connect the timelines, and this isn't a leak that's necessarily coming from a source that's not legitimate, because BGR is owned by larger corporations and stuff like that. We do still have to take everything that's said with a grain of salt, but it is interesting to look at a movie like that, and it does actually make me kind of excited to watch it, because there is a decent amount of the other characters in there. It's not just, Tom Holland is going to, go and beat up all of Tobey Maguire's old villains. It's something else. So I'd be very interested to see if this actually pans out the way it says in the leaks. It does seem, again, like the trailer matches up with a good amount of stuff in this, so I'd be curious to see how that actually pans out. You could infer certain things about it, but the things that they do say and the things that we have seen in some of the production material at least supports a portion of what is being said. So only time will tell if this is actually a real leak, but if you did listen to it, I hope that you at least want to go watch the movie. I'm actually kind of excited for this. It's one of the first Marvel films I've pretty much been excited for since Endgame. But, I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you trust these leaks? Do you not trust these leaks? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?